Welcome to the South Shore Story Slam. This is the first one for this season. Let me ask you, who has ever been to a Story Slam before? Yes, a few of you, great. Who listens to the Moth Radio? Who's ever been to Mass Mouth Story Slams? Oh, thank you. Mass Mouth was created by a friend of mine and myself about 9 years ago. I was telling the cable person that a few years ago, we were storytellers always. We've been more years than I want to tell you. And we were on the board of New England Storytellers. And when we got off, no one knew what storytelling was except for children. And we said storytelling is for everyone. And Nora went to New York and to this little teeny nightclub called the Bitter End. And there were 300 people waiting to get into this club to tell a story and to listen to a story. And she came back, she said, let's do this. So we went and we took a hit for the team, and we went to all the bars, not drinking at all of them. And we went to a place called Kennedy's, and that's where we started. And we were sold out the first night, and it's been going strong ever since. We're bringing the South Shore Story Slams and trying to build it up around here, and so far so good. I've left cards on the seats and in the tables out there on what's coming up. We have a Grand Slam Story Slam coming up in May at the Fuller Craft Museum. We are giving away you are competing for a Maine vacation, a getaway, and it's a luxury house. I know because I know the owner. Tonight, or this afternoon, you are competing for $100 worth of tickets to, there are four, they're each 25, to South Shore Conservatory, the lawn, series on the lawn, they're very coveted tickets, and a $50 gift certificate to the Company Theater. And I know my husband said, oh, can I tell a story? Well, you can, except you're judging. Actually, you can. You're very good. You don't. So we have judges from your community. Upon occasion, I call on family members. My husband, the Chief Justice over here, Charles Lovett, and I have Abby McLean and Weezy McMillan. They will be doing the judgely duties, and they can be bribed. If you're up here, if you have something good you want to give to them, then they're not opposed to that. Let's see. I have three tellers that I'm going to start off with. One more teller? Wow, I did not expect that. I may eliminate my mini slam at mini workshop in the middle. Thank you. Who knew? You know, a few years ago, I was going up the steps to the Loring Theater, and everybody was talking about storytelling and the moth, and I wanted to yell, I do that! I do that! And I thought, well, Hingham will be the place to come. So Hingham is the place to come. I didn't expect I'd have 5 storytellers before I even hit the gate. So I have to start off 3 featured storytellers. These storytellers have told at the Moth and at Mass Mouth and the Big Mouth, but I would like to tell you about my first teller. His name is Bart, and he's thrilled to participate in another South Shore Story Slam. He's originally from Nebraska. Do they have an accent there? Nebraska? You do not. I like that you claim that you do not. I'll be the judge. He now lives in a 5-bedroom apartment with roommates from Israel, Nepal, and Newton. He tries to call his parents once a week, but sometimes forgets to send a birthday card. We forgive you, or they do. I'm a mom. He can be found on stage at storytelling shows around Boston and the metro area. He hopes you enjoy the show, and cash donations are accepted. I asked each storyteller one crazy thing that they've done, and Bart tells me the crazy thing that he did. This was crazy, even for $15. He bungee jumped off a bridge in Ecuador, mostly because it was $15. Please welcome Bart Thomas.
Thanks. So about 6 years ago in January of 2010, I had the opportunity to travel to Ecuador I was down there to take a class through Rhode Island College, where I was a student at the time. And the class was 2 weeks on the study of the war on drugs and how it works with the economy there. And it was pretty interesting. And I went down with about 8 other classmates. And the first week we were there was pretty intense in the class. More work than we actually thought we were signing up. We thought we were signing up for a 3-week vacation with a couple hours in class. We were in class probably 6 hours a day, and then we had to go to an internship afterwards. So when the weekend came up and we had the opportunity to go away somewhere, we decided that we were going to take full advantage. And we hired a driver of a van to take us to a little tourist town called Baños. And Baños is probably about 90 miles outside of Ecuador. It's about a 3-hour drive outside of Quito, And the ride was, Quito is very cool. It's 75 degrees in the dry season, no humidity, no bugs, and it's a very pleasant place to be. And when we got in the van, that was what I felt. And in that 90 miles, 3-hour drive out of Quito, we end up getting out in a very hot, very humid setting. And coming from New England winter, it was still pretty refreshing. And as soon as we got to Baños, we checked into our hostel, and we kind of split up, and everyone went and looked for activities that we could enjoy as a group or on our own. 2 of my classmates took off, and we didn't see them again until the following morning. We did for a while think that perhaps they were kidnapped or murdered. Turns out, plot spoiler, they were not. So we each kind of found different activities that we could sign up for, and one that I signed up for with a couple other classmates was a bus ride up the side of a volcano. A volcano there is called Tungahara. I think that's the correct pronunciation. If you're from Ecuador and I said it wrong, please correct me afterwards. So when I heard that we were going to go up this bus ride up the mountain, that we were to meet in the parking lot and that the bus would come, we would get on it. We show up in the parking lot, and I'm expecting a line. And it's just kind of like a mass of people there. And the bus pulls up, and I think I was a little unprepared for the mounting of the bus, because it was like it was swarmed. Like everyone else was let in on this before we got there, that you should swarm the bus and find a seat as soon as possible. And what we erred in doing was we tried to get 3 seats together, which turned out to be impossible. One classmate got in and was nestled in, and as we were getting almost like a series of follies, people would jump into the seats ahead of us. So myself and 2 of my other classmates we're looking for a spot, and one of the drivers says, "Hey, I tell you what, stand on the bumper on the back," and it was kind of a wide bumper, but stand on the bumper on the back and hold on to the ladder. And when we get out of town where the bus is going to stop, you can climb up the ladder and sit on the top. It's a very fun, comfortable ride up the mountain, and you'll really enjoy it. At least that's how I heard it. And what happened was that we got on, and it's me, it's Holly, and it's Jessica, and then there's the ladder and the bus. And on the right of me are 4 other people, 2 young couples, and they are huddled, and they're like tucked in. And I'm like, wow, they are being really cautious. That's awesome. And then the bus leaves. And we realized shortly after we passed through the edge of town and over a speed bump that there was no slowing down, and there was certainly no stopping, and there was certainly no climbing up the back of this ladder to join the top of the bus. And when I tell you that I spent the next 20 minutes pretty sure that each minute was the last that I was going to be on God's green earth, I kid you not. We had latched in. I had put one arm around the ladder and one arm around Holly. And Holly had done the same thing on this side. One arm around the ladder, one arm around me. And Jessica is standing in between the 2 of us, facing outwards, occasionally taking windblown selfies. And she would occasionally turn the camera and get pictures of the people who are looking out the side of the bus at a camera coming off the bumper. The 2 couples beside us now look very smart. They're tucked in. They're holding on very tight. And we're going up the mountain, and I'm screaming at Holly, I don't think this is I think we jumped on the wrong bus. I don't know. But we caught up to another bus on the way up the hill, and it was directly in front of us. And I noticed that the road was pretty narrow. In fact, I looked over off to the side. The left side of me was a drop off, and on the right side of me was the rest of the mountain. And I saw distinctly at one point where three cows' faces going flying past, and I'm pretty sure we're just as shocked as we were to be on the bumper. And we start going like kind of swerving a little bit, and I realized that what they're doing is they're trying to pass the other bus. Now the road is barely wide enough for one, and I'm not a holy person, but I learned how to pray on the back of that. And it was very short and very quick. God, please let me out of this situation. And we got around the bus and we went up some hairpin curves and we got up to the top. And we got to this area. We climbed off the bus and we're just like heart racing, just sweating. Like I can't believe like I have got to stop drinking. I've got to stop swearing. I have got to call my parents more. I've got to, because I made this promise to God, right? And I get off and we get over to our fourth classmate who was on the bus, and she was sitting in the seat in the middle row. And she gets off and she goes, guys, wasn't that just like the craziest ride up? And we're just like, yeah. And as we're there, we're kind of relieved, but we notice that they're serving like this malted, sweet smelling. It's an alcoholic beverage, and I don't drink, so I didn't partake. But I noticed that the bus driver he's pouring it a little out for somebody, and he's taking a little sip for himself. He's pouring a little out, and that continued. And I just chose to pretend that he does this all the time, and then I can just I'm sure it's fine. And we watched this fantastic fire flinging show. Everyone's gathered around. They're selling really sweet, tasty grilled treats. And at the end of it, I've conferred with my classmates, and we've said that, hey, what we're going to do is, as soon as it even looks like they're getting on the bus, we are getting on that bus. You're getting in any seat you can find, and we are holding the hell on until we get down the hill. And after a few minutes, we can hear rumbling, and everyone in the crowd just turns towards the mountain. They go, ooh. I'm like, this is great. Maybe it means we're going to go soon. And it wasn't long after that where we did climb back onto the bus. And we all successfully found seats, and we're settled in. And then we hear somebody make a loud announcement in Spanish. And we saw people like almost like musical chairs. Everyone kind of got up and started jostling around again. And I asked somebody next to me, I said, what did they say? And they looked at me and they said, everybody needs to go back to the spot where they were on the ride up the mountain. The end.
Oh, that's funny. They say, why is story so connecting to people? And there's a reason for that. Our brains are wired for sound. I always say, where can you go skydiving, give birth to quadruplets, and get struck by lightning all from the safety of your own chair? At a story slam. You never know what's going to come up. These three stories that with Bart and my other two tellers are not judged tonight. These people I have asked, and thank you for coming. I just want to let you know the storytellers that I have, I'm overwhelmed that I had so many already. There are rules, and it is, there is no poetry unless it's inside of your story and it makes sense. They're 5-minute stories, 5 minutes max. I do give you 30 seconds. I'll be timing them over here. If you go over that 5.5 minutes, we don't give the hook here. I do give the hug. You do not want the hug. The judges I told you about, they're judging on the criteria of the story if it connects with the theme. The theme tonight is the road not traveled, the seat not had. It's how well the story, you have a story arc, you're staying within the time limit. If you're connecting with the audience, obviously we have somebody that did. You may not retell a literary work. I do have somebody that has an original piece that he would like to read. It doesn't guarantee, your name in here does not guarantee that you will get pulled. Those are pulled at random, so it doesn't come first serve. But I wish you luck. I'm going to call about 5 today, I think, because that's about what we'll have time for. We do have prizes, and the winner will move on to the next slam. Cell phones, I told everybody once, I said, turn off your cell phones, blah, blah, blah. And mine was in my back pocket and it started to ring. Because that's who I am. I'm going to have my next storyteller come up. And this is Laura Lovett. Laura is a journalist and writer. She is currently a staff reporter for the Brookline and Newton tab. She holds a master's in creative writing from University of East Anglia in Norwich, England. She is in the final stages, which I know because I've heard them all, of a memoir about teaching in the American South, and completed a memoir called Sass and the Spires when she was at Oxford. Something I asked her, something crazy that, this is true too, I know, that happened to her. When she was over in England, they had playwrights, and a playwright wrote a story about her love life, which was not accurate at all. And there was a boy in front of her that she might want to go out with. And she said, oh, I heard this is about me. And it was outrageous. The play was outrageous because it wasn't true. And he said, about you? And now that play is on world tour. Laura Lovett.
Okay, so I'm going to tell a story sort of about a friend who is always on the off-beaten path. But so I'm Lilia's only girlfriend, well, actually, I'm really Lilia's only friend. Lilia, she takes you on these adventures, and sometimes along the way, she's not very nice to everyone. But this time, she had said to me, she said, you know, I'm in love. I found the real one. He's a beard model. And so I was a little skeptical because I had been with Lilia on her other boy stories, and she had been engaged in New York before, and yet she was still having a fling with a Slovenian count at the same time. At least he said he was a count. And so Lilia said, no, we're getting married, and we're going to speed up the process as fast as possible. He was from England, she's from America, and we're going to do it in Italy because it has a really fast turnover rate with marriages. Okay. She said, will you be my maid of honor? I'm only having a maid of honor and a best man. I said, yeah, sure, I'll come. And so I had never met the beard model. And actually, he was quite attractive. And I was like, all right, I could see her spending some time with him. You know, things aren't infinite. But beforehand, she said, okay, I'm going to get married at an Airbnb. Now, Airbnbs are great. I love Airbnbs. But I usually wouldn't count on Airbnb to plan a wedding. And that's exactly what she did. So we got on the plane, and I had never met the best man either. So we get there, and we go into this little Italian village out in Tuscany. It's really far out, and it's probably about 100 people. And we meet Anna Maria, who is the hotel or the Airbnb owner, and she doesn't speak any English, and her nephew Guido. And now everything Guido said was, it is no problem. Everything, it was no problem. So we said, well, he said, you know, it is all taken care of. We have, they had a translator, they had an officiate, they had everything. It was all no problem. And then they decided to take us up to the rooms. And Lilia had booked the rooms. And so I thought I'd be getting my own room. So they showed the bride and groom a few rooms, and they picked one, and they said, okay, and for you and the best man. And now I had never met this man in my life. I was like, I'm sharing, you know, there were no twin beds. They were all queen beds. And so me and the best man became really fast friends after sharing a bed for, you know, the weekend. And so, you know, during this, everyone in the town had heard about the wedding, and everyone was really excited, and this was the big event. So wherever we went, people would say, oh, you're the bride and groom, and, you know, they'd give us limoncello, and it was really nice, and they kind of took us into their families, and we ended up having a night where we just, like, hung out with all of their families. You know, it was, like, from children to grandparents, everything. And everyone said, well, we want to be part of the wedding. We're going to all come. We're going to see you. And yeah, everyone was kind of fine with that. Lily was like, yeah, sure, come. Now it's the day of the wedding, and I am helping her get dressed. And I thought what it was her lingerie was out, and I was like, okay, where's the dress? And she says, oh, what do you think of my wedding dress? Now, this was like no wedding dress I had ever seen before. It was sort of like a risque figure skating outfit. it was all lace with sort of that sheer, that sheath skin colored where you could see through it. So it stopped about upper thigh, and then it went down to her ankles with just sheath. You could see her legs, and in between the lace, you could see parts of her stomach and her back and her chest, just everything. And now this is a very tiny, conservative little Italian village. I mean, it was bad enough that she wasn't getting married by a Catholic priest. But this, I was looking at her, and she says, "What do you think?" She said, "I did get it on a lingerie website, but we're doing it on a budget, right?" And I'm like, "Oh my God." So I looked down, and the view overlooked the altar. And there's the officiant with this red, white, and green sash, and he's an older man, and he looks very traditional, and he's ready. He has all his papers, and I'm like, oh my God, what is he gonna think? But we have to go through with it. We have to go down, and I'm looking at her, and she seems fine. She's gonna go with it. So we go down, and we're going down the aisle, and Guido had picked out some Italian pop music, so we're going down the aisle, unz, 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 unz. Just like, oh my God. And then she's going, the blushing bride with her see-through outfit. And then you see the villager, the people in the village had come out to see this, and they'd brought their kids. And I'm like, oh my God. And everyone in the village is, and who wasn't the priest, the officiant kind of looks horrified. And so they go down, and, during it, they kind of like have their hands on each other. Her and the beard model, like, I'm just like, oh, I'm so embarrassed to be there. And, then they kiss, and as they kiss, he grabs her butt in the back, and I'm like, so an update now. They're still together. They're living actually in an Airbnb. They always were good at that. And right now they live in the lunar room off the coast of Spain. And next month they're moving to the fire room.
Maybe it's Lucy that should be in the play. Oh, Lilia. My next storyteller I met a while ago now. Was giving a workshop. She had one at a Story Slam at Massmouth. And she has become a very good friend, a very dear friend. She is an attorney and owns a recruiting agency for lawyers. She enjoys boxing and traveling. She has been lost in Greece and in Italy and in Iceland. She has been telling stories to friends and family for a long time, but she entered the public arena a few years ago when I met her and told at Massmouth and won Audience Choice. And since she has performed at the Big Mouth Off, which is what we call at Massmouth, we call like I have the Grand Slam in Full of Crap. That's the one you want to get into. And she has competed at the Moth and the Moth semifinals. Something crazy, I thought this was funny, something crazy that she said she had done. In her freshman year of college, she fell into the excavation pit in a college professor's backyard at midnight while she was trying to deliver her term paper before the deadline, which she decided was the deadline. Rebecca Sachs, come on up.
The summer after college, I went on my first trip out of the country with my friend Charlie. And Charlie was actually a girl. And Charlie was very sophisticated by then. She spoke 7 languages. She had traveled extensively. And she asked me to meet her in Paris and travel across Europe with her, end up in Greece and meet her Greek boyfriend, and then travel the Greek islands. I was really nervous about it, having no language skills other than English, and a big adventure after never having traveled, but I figured this was sort of the chance of a lifetime, and I should say yes and do it. So I did, and I met Charlie over in Paris, and when we were traveling, everywhere we went, Charlie had to translate everything for me and navigate, and it was a big switch up, because before that I was always very in charge and social and verbal, and all of a sudden I was sort of mute and outside of everything, and felt, vulnerable. And so we went through this experience, and there was a lot to soak up, and it was exciting and nerve-wracking. And when we got to Greece finally, and we met up with her Greek boyfriend, there was a bonus because he showed up with 4 or 5 of his guy friends, from his Greek guy friends, and they all had motorcycles, and we were going to travel the Greek islands on motorcycles. And Charlie was the only other girl, and she was taken. So I was quite popular. And they guys would fight over who got to have me on the back of their motorcycle and Greek, and I knew I could understand that, and it was starting to be a great summer. And there was only one big problem, which is every day what they did as a group is they went to the beach and they spent the whole day at the beach swimming, relaxing, socializing, naked. And this wasn't really going to work for me. They were all really olive-skinned people, and they could be at the beach for hours naked, and I can't be at the beach for 20 minutes naked. And I didn't want to be at the beach naked in public at all, so I found other things to do with myself. And I went to cafes, and I took photos, and I sent home postcards, and I tried to talk to strangers, but I still didn't speak any Greek, so it was, I felt like an outsider. And at night, I'd meet up with a gang, and we'd have dinner, we'd go out to dinner and go dancing, and it was fun. But every day, this is what they do, and I had to amuse myself otherwise. And they would swim in the ocean naked, and I kept thinking, gosh, I'm going to go home without having swum in the Greek Ocean naked. That seems like a thing that I shouldn't go home without doing, but I wasn't going to do it in front of everybody. So I woke up one morning really early, and I thought, I can take one of the scooters to the beach. It's early. I can do the naked swim Greek thing, put it on my bucket list. I did it, and and then go back, and nobody will be around. So I took the scooter to the beach, and I parked it against this sort of cavey wall, and I left my clothes there, and I walked across, and I went into the ocean naked, and I had my swim, and I was congratulating myself about how wonderful this was and special. And then all of a sudden I realized, I'm alone, and it's not as much fun as if you were with other people. So I'm done. I did it. I'm going to go back and get my scooter and go back. And I walk across the sand naked, looking, and my bike is gone. The scooter is gone. And I'm like, oh, where could it be? There's no people around. I thought maybe I drifted when I was in the water, so I'm walking to the right and left. My clothes were by where the scooter was. They're not there. So now I'm naked and alone, stranded on this beach. I can't find the scooter. The sun is coming out, and it's getting really hot, and I'm like, I have to get out of here. I can't be here naked anymore, and I gotta go. So I go to the road, and I'm gonna have to go to the road, and my feet are burning. I have really sensitive feet, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna get such a sunburn. And I'm not really that afraid of being naked on the road. I'm really afraid of getting fried. I'm gonna get a terrible sunburn. And so I get to the road, and pretty soon a Jeep comes along. And this is an open air Jeep, and it has 4 Greek young guys in it. And they pull up next to me, and their eyes are huge. And they look so alarmed, and they're all trying to talk to me, and I can't understand a word. Can't understand a word they're saying, and they know I don't speak any Greek, and they reach out for me to come in the Jeep, and one of them takes off his windbreaker and doesn't look and gives it to me so I can wrap up my top, and the other one hands me a towel, and I put it around my bottom half, and they're reaching out for me, and I look at them, and I know I'm going to be okay with these people. So I get in the Jeep, and they try and talk to me more, but that's not working. So now they're driving me around the island to every little village. Like, do you live here? Is this where you're from? Like, where do we put you? And so finally they get somewhere, and I'm like, oh, that's it. I recognize that. And they write a little note, and they give me the note, and I go off with, and when I get back in the house, my friend Charlie translates the note, and the note says, come tonight to this tavern that their uncle owns, have dinner, everybody all together, and then I can return the towel and the windbreaker. And so we do that. We go as a group. Everybody goes at night, and we have this big table, and it's a long, long table, and it's in a courtyard with fig trees and olive trees, and the tables are all around the side. And everybody's ordering and laughing and, having a great time, and then drinking. And at the end of the night, they want to teach me a Greek sentence. And they teach me a Greek sentence, which is, they give me the bread basket, and they want to send me into the kitchen to ask for more bread, please, for the table. So I'm game. I want to learn the sentence. So I rehearse it, and I get it. And eventually, I'm ready to do it. Unfortunately, the Greek word for bread and the Greek word for cock are almost the same word. So they give me the wrong word. So I go into the kitchen with the basket and say, that sentence. And the owner, the uncle, looks at me and says something I think is what? And I say it louder. Now the whole kitchen and his wife are looking, and he takes me by the shoulder and brings me back out and chastises the boys and the table for what they did to me. And everybody's laughing. I don't know what's going on. And Charlie translates what's happened. Everybody's laughing and smiling. And then he pulls me to the center of the courtyard, and there's Greek music playing, and he's making me dance with him, and everybody's smiling and laughing. And all of a sudden I realize I'm not on the outside anymore. I'm inside where I belong.
Nice round of applause. Oh, good job, everybody. My three tellers. Okay, now the fun begins. Let's see.
I sometimes wonder, as you no doubt do, what am I doing here? First of all, my name is Jim Dolphin, and I'm from Hingham, and I'm a retired orthopedic surgeon. Now, looking over the audience, I suspect that there aren't many people here who somewhere along the line has not had an occasion to meet an orthopedic surgeon. Now, those of you who wonder just what an orthopedic surgeon does, you all know the mechanics of it and the carpentry, etc. But you have to have certain qualifications. One of the qualifications as an orthopedic surgeon is you have to be as strong as an ox, but you have to be twice as smart. Now, I had not been here before, and I did not know that reading was not permitted. Now, at my stage of my career, to memorize anything is really beyond your home telephone number and the address. And, you know, that's sort of demanding.
And I'm going to stop you right there just for 1 second, because stories are stories that you have experienced. No one memorizes their story. So anybody that was afraid to come up because they hadn't memorized their story, you lived it. You can tell it.
Okay, so that's a what. To me, that's by way of apology that I'm here. At any rate, this is an I don't tell doctor stories. I don't like them. This happens to be a story that I think has a certain human interest, a personal experience. And so I've been given the privilege of reading it because I can't remember it. The name of this little incident is A Dark Night. My entire life, after reaching the age of presumed maturity, my entire life has been spent in this vast world of attempted healing. There are moments of joy and accomplishment, and that shares with sorrow and frustration. Through it all, however, joy and humor and deeds emerge and win in the balance of life. During a phase of my training in surgery, I spent a very pleasant session, a very pleasant time at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. The initial phase of the training program was spent in general medicine, not the specialty yet. Part of my assignment was the so-called home service, which required house calls. I was provided with a car and the traditional black bag for the house visits. One dark, cold evening in Rochester, Minnesota, I received a call to visit the convent where the nuns who staffed St. Mary's Hospital lived. As I arrived at the convent, I was greeted by a nun holding a candle. She welcomed me into a dimly lighted reception room and hall. I was informed that an elderly nun of their nursing order had died. My job, my duty was obvious, to pronounce the nun's death to be of natural causes without evidence of trauma or foul play. In the quiet darkness of the convent, I followed the guiding light of the candle held by the nun. The nun was the same nun that had welcomed me into the dimly lighted reception room and hall. I was informed that an elderly nun of their nursing order had died. My duty was obvious. I was to pronounce the nun's death to be of natural causes without evidence of trauma or evidence of foul play. In the quiet darkness of the convent, I followed the guiding light of the candle held by the nun to the stairway and began my ascent. In the background of quiet darkness, there was the sound of angelic singing. Think with me. The angelic singing grew clearer as Sister and I ascended each flight of stairs. I was convinced I was hearing the heavenly voices of the angelic choir of seraphim and cherubim angels. The music grew softer, but more surrounding and more heavenly. Finally, I was led to the bedside of this ancient nun, now lying in repose. I performed the usual perfunctory tests of viability, the last of which is an eye reflex. This is terribly uncomfortable if it's felt. Sister, after I performed this simple test, Sister murmured, and then she cried out, "Dear Lord!" And she drew her last breath and died. Now, no doubt, the nuns no doubt felt that in some way I assisted Sister in the successful passage. I was blessed and I was thanked by all those who gathered about. I was then escorted down the quiet, dark stairway, leaving behind the heavenly soul and the heavenly angelic chorus welcoming her into her new world of peace. The door behind me closed, and as Sister entered her world of light, I entered the cold, black night of earthly reality. Thank you. I apologize for reading.
I know. We are so lucky that you did. We wouldn't have wanted to miss that story. Thank you so much.
This is about a bike adventure I took some years ago. The ride was rated easy to moderate in the Vermont bike catalog. The standard for Vermont, however, was very different from biking on the flat roads and on my regular route here in Hingham. For years, I had talked about wanting to do an end-to-end bike trip, but somehow the time had never seemed right, or I was just not willing to push myself. My biking buddy, Karen, gave me the boost when she said she too would do the trip. So we filled out our enrollment forms, wrote out our checks, took out our trip insurance just in case, and we marked July 7th to 11th on our calendars. Still, when the date arrived, I had that tight feeling in my stomach. Would the dog be okay at the kennel? And would my house be okay? I'd arranged for a plumber to install a new hot water heater and for a painter to do some indoor work in my absence. But what was really causing the knot in my gut went deeper than the dog and the house. Would my aging muscles, my arthritic joints, my needs a knee replacement knee be able to keep up with the other people on the trip? Would I be the one to tumble head over heels off my bike? Me, the one who never took risks? Me, the one headed to Vermont. 4 hours later, we pulled into the parking lot at the heart of the Village Inn in Shelburne. We were warmly greeted and guided to our rooms on the second floor of the Victorian-style house. My eyes took in the cozy comforters, the television, the air conditioner, the antiques, the paintings. My gaze stopped at the plate full of homemade goodies on a table near the window. Perhaps danger lurked, but at least I would be well fed. At 7 that evening, Karen and I were the first to be seated in the dining room, but were soon joined by a couple from Rhode Island. The male half of the couple, we would learn, was the only man to be on the trip. The remaining 5 bikers were a group of women from Tennessee. I quickly ascertained that Karen and I were the senior members of this bike trip. Dinner was followed by a brief meeting where we each had a chance to say why we had signed up. Karen was honest. I like to eat, and biking uses up a lot of calories. I said something about challenging myself, attempting something I'd never done before, going out of my comfort zone. Soon thereafter, we headed to our room. The next morning, Karen and I were awake, and well before the alarm. We admired each other in our new biking attire before we headed down for breakfast. The highlight of the meal was a bread pudding, but the blueberry muffins and homemade granola weren't bad either. I told myself I better be well fed before setting out on a 34-mile bike ride. I would regret that decision by the top of the first hill. Our group meeting, thereafter known as MapRap, went over the route, safety considerations, and most important for me, where the bathrooms were. Last but not least, we tried out our 21-gear Cannondale bicycles that we were renting. There are no flat roads in Vermont. What there is, however, is a serenity found in the rolling hills, grazing cows, abundant wildflowers, covered bridges, acres of farmlands, scattered farmhouses, and scenic barns. There seem to be no shopping malls. There are instead country stores filled with collectibles and antiques. There are no fast food stops, but restaurants with names like Eat Good Food serve great sandwiches. There are views of lakes and mountains that are breathtaking. There are, however, no flat roads. I thought about that as I adjusted gears and pushed on muscles and worked on breathing evenly and slowly to make it to the top of each hill. And I thought about it on each descent as well. Since I was always the last biker, I could see those ahead of me flying down the roads, gathering a speed that would give them momentum to the next climb. I descended with more caution, feathering the brakes, choosing control over speed. I wanted to be able to let loose, to fly like the others, but accepting who I am was part of the experience. The third day proved to be the most difficult. We had biked from Virgin to Middlebury, walked around the town, had a snack, and headed off for the return trip. The wind had grown stronger, and we were headed directly into it. Having been the wife of an avid sailor, I should have developed an understanding for wind direction. I never had, or at least until this leg of the biking experience. I was behind Karen, watching her struggle and push as I, too, struggled and pushed. Neither one of us would give up, even when the van came by to offer us a lift. We needed to prove to ourselves that we could do it, and we did. When I pulled into the driveway of the inn, I had a feeling of exhilaration as well as a bit of insight into the kind of person who takes the risk and chooses the adventure. Day 4, our last day, bags packed, group picture taken, goodbye said. We turned in the bikes. It was time to go home. No broken bones and no bruises. Back in the car, we reversed direction. I walked on my deck. A note was taped to the door, something about a broken lock, problems stripping the wallpaper, the electricity not working in the bathroom. Back to reality, or as I learned on my trip, there are no flat roads.
All right. I am going to let the judges judge. And then Jeff is up on deck. Where are you, Jeff? Oh, okay. Hang on. In between, I do trivia. And on your seat, some of you, you will see a piece of paper and a pencil. There are prizes. There are really bad prizes for this. And I hope you win. So you need groups of 3 to 4. Okay, check around and reach out to your neighbor. When they give me the signal, Jeff, I'm going to call you up. Yes. No, we're not doing audience choice today. Just judging. Normally I do audience choice. Okay, what is the country with the most dangerous road? Don't tell it out. Just talk, confer with your you don't have a team? You got a team back there? Okay, number 2. Everybody should know this. What is the name of the famous highway in the middle of the country? Oh, well, I have to give you easy ones too. because I'm really not good at this. Oh. All right, here's a hard one. And then I'll see if I have my judges ready. First automobile highway in the world. Not here, not there, in the world. Oh, you give up. You can't give up. You can make a wild guess, but you can't give up. Are you on a team, Judy? You don't have paper. I strategically put paper all over the place. But actually, that does not leave you out because I have paper. In what country? Italy? Oh, I don't know. I do know. Actually, I do know. And the other one is the famous highway in the middle of the country. Jeff, would you please come up and let's give him a great big hand for being so patient and waiting. You need some height here? I think so, huh? There you go. How's that?
Great, thanks.
All right.
Can I give you a hug?
Oh, thank you. I can always use them.
Hi, my name's Jeff Lee. I'm from Hingham. I'm an avid Moth podcast listener. This is my first slam. I consider myself, thank you. I consider myself more of a story reader than a storyteller, so we'll see how this goes. My road less traveled was when I was a stay-at-home dad, and I did that on a few occasions. Now, most caregivers of young children, they're women. Most au pairs are women. Most nannies are women. Most mothers are women. Oh, wait a minute. Well, in this day and age, you never know, so I don't want to offend anybody. Speaking of offending, has anyone noticed in Hingham, most of the people are white? So it won't be often that you see a Chinese American dad with his young children in a playground here. And imagine being a black man walking around Hingham Square pushing a stroller with a blonde-haired, blue-eyed baby in it. Think of all the stares that poor au pair would get, not to mention the calls to 911, but I digress. So you won't often find a father volunteer in their second grader's classroom, or drive the afternoon shift of the after-school carpool, or drive to and from afternoon soccer game in the middle of the week. But I'm very proud to say that I was able to do that, and I'm glad I did. I got a chance to bond with my kids a bit. In some cases, I got to meet their friends. Now, these memories, my kids, they don't always remember everything, and as time goes by, they'll probably forget more and more. But I can tell you, I will always remember. I'll remember it all. Now, being a stay-at-home dad, particularly with an infant, it's not all Honey Nut Cheerios and afternoon naps. I can tell you. My first tour of duty as a stay-at-home dad, I gave up a good-paying desk job to be with our first child when he was a baby, 6 months old. My wife went back to work in downtown Boston, and she's a lawyer. So my son and I, we had this routine every day, and it was like this. We'd wake up in the morning, I'd change his diaper, and we'd sit down in front of the TV. At least it was PBS. We watched Arthur on WGBH, and I say, hey, hey, what a wonderful kind of day. Brought to you by Juicy Juice. Okay. After the show, I would change him, get him dressed for the day, and we'd go out for a stroll. We would go to a park. He'd love to look up at the trees, look down at the grass, the flowers. We'd go to a pond and feed the geese, feed the ducks. We'd go to the supermarket, the library, all lots of fun. We'd come home, we'd have lunch. So I would feed him his baby food, which was actually a bit stressful for me because when he was a baby, he was a very finicky eater. Now he's a freshman in college, and I must say, he's still pretty picky. but at least I don't have to wipe his chin anymore. It's a good thing. After feeding him, I'd give him his bottle, and he'd fall asleep. So yay, it was nap time. It was my first chance to have a break. Sometimes I would do some laundry, sometimes read a magazine, but most of the time I would snooze with him, with the baby. When he woke up, I'd change his diaper again, and it was snuggle time, and I'd read him some stories. I used to love reading him stories. Then I would put him down, and he'd play with his toys. I'd straighten up the kitchen, tidy up the house before mommy got home. We'd play children's CD. I would sing along while we waited for mommy to get home. We'd look out the window. I would look at the clock. When is mommy getting home? Finally, she got home. Son's very excited. I'm relieved. I could finally relax. So this experience, it really gave me a sense of respect. Wow, sense of respect for stay-at-home parents. It's not easy. It's not easy to do, and I think for many men, we're not strong enough or patient enough to do it full time, and that is why I think the road less traveled is being a stay-at-home dad. Thank you.
And while the judges are judging, I'm going to tell you something about my aunt. My Aunt Anne was notorious for having a bad sense of direction. My mother and father said she could get lost in the backyard, which is why we wondered why and how my mother allowed her to take the lead into the bird sanctuary that day. And when we went in, it was only supposed to take us maybe an hour and a half. You go in, hear a few birds, come back, eat lunch, you're done. 3.5 hours later, my aunt is making bird sounds that no self-respecting bird would ever recognize. Woo, woo, woo. And then she did a stage whisper to my mother, and she said, "Louise, I think we're lost. We were supposed to follow the blue path, and I haven't seen it in hours." Doo, 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 doo. And her bird sounds kept getting more rapid as we went into the forest. She got more and more nervous. And then, after that, no child wants to hear we're lost. The second thing that you don't want to hear is two adults. The adults stopped being adulty, and they panicked. "Help! Help! We're lost! Did anybody hear us? Help!" And my sister and I and my cousin locked arms, and we became one, and we walked through the woods following them, and we were scared. And they pooled their limited knowledge of two city slickers, they were born and raised in Dorchester, of how to survive a night in the forest. There was something about a Hershey bar split into 6 ways. And then we came upon this blueberry patch. Now, I don't know if you've ever picked blueberries in the wild. They're about as big as your baby fingernail. These ones were the size of marbles. And my mother said, eat up, we don't know when our next meal will be." So we're eating the blueberries, and my mother did the third thing that you don't want to hear when you're lost in the forest with two city slickers. "I think I hear a bear." And we were all panicked, and we're paralyzed with fear. And instead of taking us and shoveling us in an opposite direction, she starts walking towards the noise. And my aunt says, "Louise, what are you doing? I think I hear a bear." And she goes right to the bush where she thinks the noise is coming from. And up from the other side of the bush comes a woman who has horror on her face. She has pink curlers and a big bandana wrapped around that. And she said, "Where's the bear?" And my mother said, You're the bear." And she started laughing, and she said, "We've been lost for 3.5 hours. Do you know how to get out?" She says, "Well, actually, I do. This is my backyard. And these are, you pick blueberries. This is part of my business." So she agreed to let us out, and we walked past her house, which was right in front of us. We never saw it. we went out to the middle of the road, and we stood there, and she pointed maybe 300, 500 feet down the road. She said, "There's the parking lot." And there in the parking lot was my aunt's white car, the only one left in the lot. And my mother says, "Thank God we're saved." And to this day, she never acknowledged, nor did I ever know why she would let her aunt, my aunt, lead her family. And she was notoriously bad at directions.
Hi, I'm Paul Doncaster. I'm from Weymouth. This is also my first time. It didn't take very much to sell my new wife on the idea of having a two-family as our first home. We were just married, planning on starting our own family ourselves, and the idea of some steady income coming in while she stayed home and tended to our firstborn was very appealing, to say the least. I grew up in a two-family house in Somerville, and my parents live there to this day in the house that they bought in 1973 for $23,000 in Davis Square, which is now worth $950,000 or something insane like that. So with all of the angst that goes into being a first-time home buyer, I always tried to take my father's advice to heart. So the big thing I was concerned about was, of course, the tenant-landlord relationship. And he said, whenever you get a hold of a good tenant, hold on to them because they're like gold. And I guess it was too much for me to ask from our first tenant to have that sort of good relationship. And sure enough, the young couple that moved in through the floorboards in the apartment downstairs, we could hear them argue about everything, from his apparently insufficient paycheck to her apparently intolerable foot odor. And they didn't last more than a year. And the door literally hit them in the ass on the way out, leaving me with an unexpected glass replacement bill. So a couple weeks later, when Sandra showed up, I was really relieved to go upstairs after I met her and say to my wife, "You're going to like this one." We were very concerned that she wasn't going to want to take the apartment because we had a baby on the way. And turns out she was extremely concerned that we weren't going to want her because she had a 6-year-old. But very, very quickly, they became part of the family immediately. They were the first to see my new daughter when she came home from the hospital. She made them clothes, like with her sewing machine. She actually made my daughter's little outfits. We exchanged gifts at Christmas. We spent time down there. We became very close to her mother. She became very close to my parents. Everything was just phenomenal. And to this day, I like to think that her son's success on the Winthrop High School football team was due in part, at least, to the throw-arounds that we would have in the driveway. And my wife and I would constantly look at each other and count our good fortune and say, what do we do to keep her here? We have to keep this relationship going. We'll keep the rent artificially low if we have to, but we have to keep her here. And so, for all those years, we tried to come up with ways to keep her there. So the irony was not lost on me when it was me that ended up telling her that we were leaving. I had earned a master's degree and got an opportunity for a job in Minnesota that was just too good to pass up. So amid a flurry of home inspection trips and meeting with realtors and things like that, by far the hardest part of the whole process was telling Sandra that we were leaving. And on the day that we left, my wife and daughters safely in a hotel room in East Boston, I spent my last moments in that house with Sandra, walking around the empty rooms, thinking about what I thought was going to be a very, very long relationship and a very happy time in a house that I thought I was going to be grounded in for a long time. So now it's 9 years later. My family and I are back from Minnesota. Vinny's in college. She's still in that house in the lower level. So a couple weeks ago, we went to my daughter's gymnastics meet in Winthrop and asked her if she wanted to come, and of course she came. And we drove her home, and as she got out of the van, I regretted really not being able to thank her for keeping watch over the place that I thought was going to be a part of our life for a very, very long time.
I am going to do a mini workshop because I think you all should know each other. The road not traveled. I give these workshops all over the place, and I will be giving them up in Northampton tomorrow. This is a mini workshop, just so you get to know each other a little bit better. And I want you to think about a time, thanks for your patience, Jim. I want you to think about a time when you may have taken a different path, or maybe you wondered about another, could have been college. Wondered what would happen if you had taken a different road. Could have been maybe adopting a pet. Could have been a job. It could have been a book in the library and it was lost. Could have been a purchase. Anybody have a different one? Yeah. A relationship, absolutely, a relationship. Land on one of those memories just now. And I want you to think where you were at that time. Think about, just go back to that moment. And I want you to think where you were standing at that moment, what you had on your feet, what you were doing. Take a look around you. Who was with you? Come up to height level. Look, is there people that are familiar? Is there something that stands out? Is there a color or a sound? Think about sound. Sound in a story is in every story. Sometimes it's the absence of sound. Think about sound and the quality of sound. In a place like this, my voice is very clear. In a Fenway Park, the voices are very loud and mixed. Think about sound and the quality. Think about scent. They say scent is the one sense that can bring back a memory quicker than any other. I have this, when my husband and I were traveling in Munich, there was this scent of diesel fuel. And every time I smell that, I'm like brought right back to that place and time. Think about taste. Is there a taste? I was doing this workshop. This little boy said, I was making chocolate cake. There's no taste. I said, what do you mean? And then he said, well, it did taste like melted Hershey bars. I said, taste. And touch. What was the weather like? Was it hot or cold? And I want you to sit with that memory. Think who, what, and where was this memory. And then I want you to turn to somebody in this room. And I want you to, for 1 minute, 1 minute, from beginning, middle, and end, tell that story. And if you don't, I will find you a partner. So, you three can move over right there. It doesn't matter. You can talk again. and right here, and right in here. Oh, and thank you. Right over there. And I'm going to, how about right here, right in back of you? Could you move up there, right there? Or she can move over to you if you'd rather. And, oh. Begin, please. You got a whole minute. It's just about a minute. I'm going to pull you back in. Oh, see, you're all old friends now. Who in this room heard a good story? Who heard a good story? You heard a good story? Who told that story? Would you be willing to tell that story for just 1 minute? You don't have to tell a whole story. 1 minute. Yeah, how about that? What?
My name is Dan. I just, when she talked about scent triggering memories, I remember when I was in high school, I used to be on the chess team in high school, and a neighbor of ours worked at the Port Authority in New York City. I lived in New Jersey, and because he was high up in the Port Authority, and we were in this little community, this little lake community, he kind of set it up so there was a bus stop, like right in front of our house, basically, that took us right into New York Port Authority. And used to go in there for these chess events, and I was young, and I went in there, and it was like, oh, the air is like, it's like soup, it's like substantial. It's like, I mean, it was bus fumes, is what it was. But I thought, wow, you can like live off of this. It has substance. It must be good for you, I think. And so, like, to this day, like bus fumes are still are good memories. They're exciting to me. I enjoy bus fumes.
This is the very first time I've ever told a story at a mic. Okay, and I wrote it out, and we're not allowed to write, so I'm going to remember it. Okay. My journey started in 1968. I was 17 years old. I got on a train in rural New Brunswick, and I took the train to the big city of Toronto, where I went to live for 4 months in the Salvation Army Home for Unwed Mothers. In that home, it was a lot of large bedrooms and a lot of young women who were really nice young women. So I was there every day. We had to go to chapel twice a day, and thank God that they had found us and were going to save our souls. When it was time to have the baby, they put me in a cab, sent me off to the hospital. I got to the hospital, and because I was under 18, I could have no medication. I could call no one. They put me in a room and shaved me, gave me an enema, and many times opened the door and said, "Stop yelling." So the baby finally came, and a nurse said, "Would you like to hold the baby?" And I said, "No. I knew if I'd held the baby, I would be haunted for the rest of my life." The next day, social worker came and took me on the elevator. I grabbed my Johnny, and I had the hospital slippers on. And I went up to the next floor. A nurse was holding a little baby, and the nurse said, "Is this your baby?" And I knew it was because it had little jowls like my boyfriend had, the father. And then the social worker said, "Do you relinquish all ownership of this baby?" That's not the words, but I'm nervous. And I said yes, and turned around and went back to the room that was reserved for unwed mothers, tucked at the back of a corridor so no one would ever look in and see these women. I went back to my hometown and started over. Nobody asked me. My parents said, "You have a nice trip?" And I just continued my life as usual. And although everybody in town knew, I failed grade 12. I failed my next 2 attempts at college, gained 40 pounds. I married and divorced. I slit my wrists. I think that was it. And decided I would find my son. I registered at organizations that would help. I registered with the government, who a child could look for their birth parents at that time. And I hired a lawyer. Friends would have suggestions. Anyway, nothing. But finally, the Ontario government changed the law so that the birth parent could look for the child. I think I was the very first person that sent in the application. I know I was application number 1. A few months later, I got an envelope with the provincial seal on it. I opened it. My son's records were there, his name. I waited. I couldn't write him right away, but I finally wrote him a letter, mailed it off. Beautiful paper. I got beautiful paper. I said, "I think I gave birth to you. I want you to know I'm good, I'm happy, whatever happens, I'm fine." About a week later, I got an email, and he said, "I just got your letter. I want you to know I'm so glad that you wrote. As soon as my chin comes off the floor, I will write more. And to let you know, I'm married and I have a son." A few hours later, I got the first picture I ever saw of him. It was a picture and with his son and a sheep. I love animals. I was happy. I showed that picture to everybody that ever walked in proximity, and he and I talked on the phone in a few days, and then I went to see him. I got off the plane, and first thing I did was I saw the jowls. And we spent a couple of days together. He has a wonderful wife whom I love. My little grandson, who's now 10, who said to me on the last visit, he said, "You know, Jan, I think you would have been a good mother." And I said, "Jacob, you changed my life." So I told my son, no matter what happens, because it's not easy, I said, no matter what happens, all that matters is that we love each other, that I love you, and I know he loves me. And I actually, by coincidence, I'm off to see him tomorrow.
That's why we tell stories. Wonderful. All right, I'm going to wrap this up with the trivia. Get your pencils ready. Famous street where a bird lives. Shh, shh. Well, he didn't get it. My husband did not get it. He said it was Pelican Street. Okay, a byway noted for its scenic beauty, and it has a ridge in it. You know it. If you live in Massachusetts, you probably do know this. Early mail delivery routes between New York City and Boston, and it was started in 1673. Oh, that question is out. Oh, okay. Now it was the Boston Post Road. I'm a blurter too. I belong to that. There's a game for us, and it's called Blurt, and I'm good at it. You and I would be great. Take on the world. Okay, so in what country is the most dangerous road? It's Bolivia, believe it or not. Okay, what is the name of the famous highway in the middle of the country? Do-do-do-do, do-do-do. Do you remember? Route 66. It was a TV show. The name, did I do this? The name of the New Hampshire highway that goes through the mountains? Oh, it's a different one. Okay. Oh, the very first highway, right? Oh, that is actually in Italy. It's Milan to Switzerland. Anybody get that? Highway 1. That was a good guess. Sherlock Holmes Street. Oh, yes, it is, Baker. Yes, it is. Famous street where a large bird lives. I thought that was Pelican. Let's see. So how many, which one did I miss any? Oh, Abbey Road. So how many in this room of you? Oh, yeah, what is that? Yeah, and you could go north and south at the same time. Those are very local ones. All right. Who in your groups had all of them right? Anybody? Okay. Who had all but one right? All but two right? Oh, you had all but two? Who's in your group? Well, you have to have a group. All but two right? Okay. And how many in your, all but two? How many in your group? 1, 2, 3. And how many in your group? Oh. All right, well, this is how I'll do it.
Should we get shoes?
You huh? Yeah, you get shoes. Right here from Stetson. You get, here they are. Come up and get your prize. You get a chance at millions of dollars. All right. Drum roll, please. Thank you. Our second place I'm going to go with first is Paul. And you don't get shoes, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'll take the hug.
And Jan. And
Nice job. Nice job.
yeah, Jan is first. Okay. I announced second place first.
It's like Miss America.
You know. We do like the hugs here.
We do.
And
Thank you.
You get the company theater. You'll be, okay, let's a picture. Yay.
You both baby cry.
Really, really.
Well,
Especially, you've never done this.
Oh, congratulations.
Oh, how nice. I didn't know that. Okay, ready? can you show the gifts?
Oh, sure.
Because I have to give that to the donors.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to announce in the back Judy Moore, who we are going to have a story slam in Quincy, April 22nd. Our next story slam is April 1st at the James Library. The theme is funny business. Do you have a funny story? 5 minutes? You're good. You should come. There are out there are cards with all the dates. I do Doyle's every third Saturday in Jamaica Plain. The winner, where is she? You're invited to come to compete for the Grand Slam Story Slam. That's May 7th at the Fuller Craft Museum. Those tickets will sell out quick. So thank you very much, and keep on telling.